This is Suspenders Unbuttoned podcast. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Julie.
Join us for unbuttoned and unedited conversations.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Suspenders Unbuttoned podcast. My name is Sarah.
And I'm Julie, and we're excited to welcome Rick Garman. Welcome, Rick.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Before we move on, let me just say, please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not already. Trying to be better at that. But Rick, you have written some of the most popular movies of the week on, all the channels, including Hallmark. You just had one air just last week, Falling Together with Ashley Williams and Paul Campbell, which was a great hit. So tell us a little bit about how you got started writing TV movies.
Wow, it was a long, weird journey. I started writing back in the 90s when I was in my 20s. I mean, well before I was born. Anyway, I was working for, I had moved to Los Angeles when I was 18 years old, and I was going to be an actor. And I went to acting school and I graduated and I went on one audition and I said, nope, that is not for me. I bummed around doing a few jobs here and there, and I wound up at a theater company in Los Angeles called The Colony. And one of the company members had passed away from AIDS. It was in the early 90s. And they wanted to do a play about AIDS, but all the plays that were out there at the time were very angry, strident, as they should be during that time. But they just weren't right for the theater's audience. Right. So I was like, I've been in plays, I've said plays, I'll write a play. Why not? And so I wrote a play, and they liked it, and they did it, and it won a bunch of awards. And then I wrote another one, and they did it, and it won a bunch of awards. And I had these visions of being the next great American playwright. Didn't work out. Nothing more happened after that. And so I started working other jobs. I worked in the entertainment industry for a long time, and then I worked in the internet industry for a long time. But I kept writing because I had fallen in love with writing. It was an outlet. It was therapy. It was a hobby. I loved writing. So I wrote movies, and I wrote plays, and I wrote TV shows, and I did all sorts of stuff. And periodically opportunities would come up, and I would get close to something happening, and then it just didn't happen. And then finally, around 2015 or so, a friend of a friend who's a manager, he connected me with a company that produced movies for a channel called Pixel, which doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. And I got an opportunity to write a movie for them. They had read some of the stuff that I had kept writing all those years. And I wrote it, they loved it, they made it. It became one of their favorite movies, one of their biggest hits. And they invited me to write several more. And that got me into Hallmark. So I wrote my first movie for them called Christmas in Homestead, which I think in 2016 with Taylor Cole.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the start. And it went well. They liked it. They invited me to write more. I started meeting producers, and I sort of took every job that I possibly could. And by 2017, I was working in the internet industry. I was running a big team and executive job and all that kind of stuff. But I was making more money writing movies than I was at this high-paying executive job. And I was 50 years old, and I said, if I'm gonna do this, am I ever gonna have another chance to do this? I'm gonna take advantage of this. So I quit the high-paying job and became a writer full-time, and now cut to a few years later, and I've written over 40 movies, and it's been a great ride. I've been very lucky.
Wow. I love that story.
It's a great story. I think so many people don't get to where they are on the road is not straight. It's,
No.
Life's a journey.
I tell people all the time, regardless of, when I talk to young writers, but also to anybody who has like a dream of doing something, whether it's a creative thing or a career thing or an anything thing, that there is no time limit on your passion. There is no time limit on your dreams. I am a great example of someone who wanted to do something for a long time, but didn't get successful at it until later in life. And in many ways, I'm grateful for that because I feel like it's made me a better writer. I think it's made me a better person to work with. Having worked in corporate gigs and things like that, I understand the needs of teamwork and deadlines and all that kind of stuff that I think when you're younger and not really as experienced, that you miss some of the things that can make you truly successful. I always tell every producer or anybody that I work with when I first meet them, is I say, I am the least precious writer that you will ever meet in your life. If you want to make the main character a dog, I might say, here's why I don't think that's a great idea. But in the end, it is your project. You're paying me to write this, and I will write the best dog movie that I possibly can. And so I think, again, my sort of work experience and my life experience set me up for success. It just took a while.
That makes me wonder about how often are you writing scripts on your own and coming up with your own ideas, and then versus like how often your approach to write another, a producer's idea or something.
I am very busy. And so unfortunately, I don't have a lot of free time often to work on spec scripts, so things that nobody's paying me to specifically write. When I do, they're often not the kind of projects that you might see on a channel like Hallmark. Right. My tastes are wide and varied. But in terms of the movies specifically that air on channels like Hallmark, it's really a broad mix. Sometimes they're my ideas that I have developed and I will pitch to them. Sometimes they're ideas that somebody else brings to me, a producer or an actor. I have several calls this week with actors who have some ideas that they want to talk to me about. Sometimes they're scripts that have already been written and they want me to rewrite them. That's the case with Falling Together. That project came to me, had already been written. But they wanted to make some changes, and so they gave it to me. That happens to me too. Scripts that I've written go to other writers and are rewritten. And sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's that I have to adapt. So it sort of comes from all different places.
Yeah, I like that. So what is it about these movies of the weeks or Christmas movies that keep you writing them? What do you like about them?
Well, I've always said that, these movies often get made fun of, and my friends, people send me the memes and they send me the constantly. And, I always say that, they don't win awards and people make fun of them and they're considered a little cheesy sometimes, but the bottom line is that they make people happy.
Yeah.
And my movies, the movies that I've written, have been seen by tens of millions of people. And who gets to say in their life, in their career, that the job that they have done has made tens of millions of people happy? it's a very small group that gets to say that, and that I get to be a part of that is an honor, really.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, Julie and I have spent a lot of time in the fandom now, and we've been to different fan events and talking to fans. And of course, we're fans as well, but everybody seems to have a story, right? Everybody has a story of why they love these movies or what brought them to the movies. And very often you're tearing up listening to these stories. And I think it's a fandom unlike any other. Because
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you a version of that. I was on the set of, well, backing up a little bit. In 2012, I had esophageal cancer, which is a really nasty. I mean, all cancers are nasty, but esophageal cancer specifically is a bad one. Fewer than 1 in 5 survive longer than 5 years. But I survived it and was very lucky to get through that. Cut to a few years later, I was on the set of Christmas in Evergreen with Ashley Williams and Holly Robinson Peete, and it was kind of a tough shoot. It was in Canada. It was in late October, early November, if I remember correctly, and it was just bitterly cold and some really long days. They were having some issues. And the mood on the set wasn't fantastic. There were everybody was sort of struggling a little bit.
Right.
And I got an email from a woman who had found me through an esophageal cancer support group. And she told me about how her and her husband, who had esophageal cancer, they used to watch Hallmark movies because they made them happy. It made them forget about what they were going through for a couple of hours, because, in this world, nobody dies. There's no bad guy really. There's just people who are kind of misguided. And it ends with a kiss. So it always has a happy ending. So they would watch these movies and it would make them feel better. And what she wrote me is that after he passed away, she continued to watch these movies because it reminded her. It gave her comfort. So I took that email and I took it around and I showed it to everyone. I showed it to the actors. I showed it to the director. I showed it to the producers. I showed it to people on the crew. Yeah. And every one of them, without fail, was like, oh, right. That's why we do this. And I'm not saying that magically changed everything, the mood on the set, right. But people really dug in and we're like, yeah, thank you. It reminds me of why we do this all the time. So it's a powerful thing that we're doing.
Right. And like you mentioned before, there's endless amounts of memes and spoof videos about these movies. But I think the people that get it. Like, it's more than that. It's more than those silly things. And, the cheesiness of it is what kind of makes it so special. Yeah.
I mean, this kind of thing is really, there's more and more of this stuff out there. If you look at really popular shows that are out there, like Ted Lasso or Abbott Elementary, these shows that are sort of leaning into the positivity of stuff. And I think that I certainly think there's a market, and I enjoy dark stuff. I enjoy crime dramas and horror movies and suspense and all that kind of stuff. I think that there's a world for this too, and it's important.
Yeah.
We kind of celebrate the memes of it because it has to reach a broad audience in order for there to be a meme. Like, everyone has to get it in order to get the joke, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you have like a million projects coming out just in the rest of this year. So do you want to tell us about those?
Sure. Well, we've already mentioned Falling Together. That one
Yeah.
was a really special movie, and it's still airing. There's a couple more airings of that in October, I believe.
Yeah.
Before we segue into Christmas. But I'm really proud of that movie, and was really honored to have been asked to be a part of it. There is a storyline that deals with Alzheimer's in that movie. It's a very small part of the movie. It's not the predominant theme. It's still a movie that Hallmark fans will love, because there's the romance and the humor and all that good kind of, and fall. There's all sorts of good autumn stuff in there. But both of my parents, before they passed, they faced issues with dementia. And so being a part of that movie and being able to work on that storyline, and then it premiered on World Alzheimer's Day. And so they worked with the Alzheimer's Association to make sure we got stuff right and to sort of co-promote it. I've actually got a call later today with the local Alzheimer's group about their Walk to End Alzheimer's, which is featured in the movie. So if you haven't seen that one, I highly encourage you to catch one of the re-airings that are happening in October. It's a really fun. And Ashley Williams and Paul Campbell, they're just delightful in this movie. I told Ashley, I've said to her several times, can you just be in everything that I write, because she's fantastic. Then coming up in October, I believe it's October 17th.
I think so.
We have the Groomsmen trilogy. Debuting on Hallmark Plus, the new streaming channel. The Groomsmen trilogy is sort of a different thing for Hallmark, because its romance is told from the guy's point of view.
Yes.
There are lots of really strong female characters in there, and there's sort of an overarching, I'm not going to call it a mystery, but it's a character that a female character who has stepped out from her wedding and is having some second thoughts, and you don't really know who this character is, and it sort of unfolds through the trilogy. You get to find out who this character is and why she's telling these stories. But in the first one is BJ Britt's story. It's about these three guys played by Tyler Hines, Jonathan Bennett, and BJ Britt. They've been best friends since they were kids, and each of them gets a love story. And all the movies are interconnected, and there's some scenes that you'll see the scene in the first movie, and then you'll see sort of a different version of that scene in the second movie, and again in the third movie. So all the stories are connected, but they are individual standalone movies as well. So BJ Britt's movie is he meets a woman, their romance happens, they're going to get married, and things go awry. And so his friends Tyler and Jonathan have to sort of step in and try to get things back on track. So it's a really fun movie. The second one is Jonathan Bennett's movie, and he has a best friend, Zach, and they have been friends, non-romantic friends, for a long time. And in the second movie, Jonathan Bennett's character starts to realize that he's in love with his best friend. But the best friend is getting married. And so Jonathan is his best man. So it's a little bit of a my best friend's wedding kind of thing.
Yep.
As Jonathan and his best friend are planning a wedding in Greece, and everything goes wrong, of course, and they have to get it all back in track. And then does Jonathan's character admit his feelings? So that one's a really fun romance. Anybody who has seen movies with Jonathan Bennett knows what he can do. His comedy is great, and he's at his peak really in this movie. He's at a new peak. He's going to have many more.
Plus, that one's in Greece.
That one takes place in Greece. Yes, nice. The first one takes place in Italy, I think.
Oh, so we get to go to Ukraine.
Yeah, so it was shot. All three movies were shot primarily in Bulgaria.
Right.
But they did some shoots of stuff in Italy and in Greece. And then the third movie is Tyler Hines' movie, and his story is about his child, his daughter, who you've met throughout the movie, and has gone with his ex-wife. They have moved to Italy, and so he sort of gives up his life to follow them and meets someone, and romance ensues there as well. So it's these three really charming romantic love stories, but with three with two very strong female leads in the first one and the third one, and then an LGBT romance in the second one. And it's they're fun and they're romantic and really leaning into the comedy, and I think that audiences are really going to enjoy these.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think the fans have been asking for the male perspective for quite a while now, and we got like a little bit of that with the Three Wise Men movies, but it really wasn't about the romance. So I think this will be really fun to watch the love stories unfold. Yeah, from a perspective we don't normally get to see much of.
Exactly, and the whole experience of these three guys who are, they're three guys and they're friends, and they taunt each other and tease each other and make fun of each other, but in the end they're there for each other, and that friendship that you see throughout the three movies, and how that plays into the romances that happen. It's a really cool thing that we don't get to see often.
Yeah.
Was it fun to write some comedy for these guys? I know these three guys love leaning into the comedy.
Yeah, I've Jonathan and I text and chat, and he was in Christmas on Cherry Lane last year. It's a lot of fun to write for him. Because I know I've sort of gotten to know his style, and he's somebody who can make anything funny. But I think audiences are really going to be surprised. I got to see a rough cut of that movie, and I think they're really going to be surprised by the heartfelt emotion and the romance of it. There's a couple of tear-jerking moments in that one too. And he both the leads do a fantastic job in that.
Wow, yeah, we're excited.
Yeah,
I'm curious. How did this come about? How did the trilogy idea come about? Can you share any light into that?
Yeah, it was Jonathan worked with a writer, and they came up with the ideas, and there had been some work that had been done on it when they brought it to me, and so it was my job to sort of look for a way to strengthen the stories that were already there, come up with some new elements, come up with totally new stories, to flesh out, because it really was sort of conceptual, with a script that had been written, one that had been written of the three. And so we all worked together, myself and the producers and the folks at Hallmark, to develop this into what you're going to see on the screen.
Yeah, that's super fun. And so Jonathan was in Cherry Lane last year. So that leading into this, do we get to see some more?
Yes. Well, that is the big news. It has just been announced last week, I believe, that Christmas on Cherry Lane we're going to see more Christmas on Cherry Lane. In fact, we're going to see 3 more movies, all taking place on Cherry Lane. I'm really excited about this one. They came to me last year and said, we're really excited about Cherry Lane. This was before the movie even aired. And we want to do 3 more. And wow. I was really excited about it. And then I got really intimidated by it because if you've seen Christmas on Cherry Lane, it's another sort of non-traditional Hallmark movie. Right. Not to spoiler alert coming up for anybody who has not seen it. But it's been a year, so come on, you need to have seen it by now.
We've seen it.
So Christmas on Cherry Lane tells the story of three families who live on Cherry Lane. There's a young couple who has moved into a house. The wife is pregnant. That's Erin Cahill and John Brotherton. And it's Christmas Eve, and their family shows up unexpectedly, and Christmas havoc ensues. And then there's another family. It's a woman played by Catherine Bell, who has decided that she's getting married to James Denton. So we have that nice little Good Witch reunion in there.
Perfect.
And she has to tell her adult children that she's going to be getting married and selling the house that they live in on Cherry Lane that they grew up in, and more Christmas havoc ensues. And then you have the third story, which is Jonathan Bennett and Vincent Rodriguez III, who are a couple. They're a married couple who they find out on Christmas Eve that they're going to meet. They're going to get a foster daughter that night, and their house is being renovated, and again, more Christmas havoc ensues. So it's these three separate stories, and as the movie unfolds, we find out how they're all connected. And there's all these very deep connections between these stories that unfold. The reference we've used many times is sort of "This Is Us." So the stories sort of intertwine and unfold with each other. And the big secret that's revealed at the end of the first act is that they're all in the same house, but in different time periods. So the first couple's in 1973, the second couple's in 1999, and then Jonathan and Vinny's story, that's in 2023. So when they came to me and said, well, we want to do 3 more of these, I'm like, okay, now I have to do nine more stories. So there's 3 more stories in each movie.
Wow.
Of different families that have lived in the same house going all the way from 1951 to 2024. And they're all connected. So not only are they connected within each movie, but they're all connected to each other throughout all 4 movies now. And it's really important for audiences, I think, to understand you don't have to have seen the first movie, really. And you don't have to watch them in order. You don't have to watch them all together. It's not like each movie stands on its own and is a very satisfying piece of storytelling. But when you watch all 4 of them, you'll see not only how they're all connected, but there's all sorts of little Easter eggs that we put in there, little things that people might go, oh, that's the thing that was over there. And that's, so it's really, it's really an exciting, it was challenging, but it's a really exciting, different way of storytelling. And we get to as opposed to just one romance or one Christmas story, we get 9 of them. So it's a lot of fun.
Okay, so when I was first realizing that there was a trilogy, in my mind, I was thinking one for each family, but it's not. It's the same style as the original, where they're all entwined in one movie, but we get
correct. So the first movie, which is debuting on December 5th on Hallmark Plus, is called Season's Greetings from Cherry Lane. And there are 3 stories in that one. The first is in 1951, so it's the very first people who moved into this house. And it's Corey Cott, who was just on Broadway in The Heart of Rock and Roll, and his wife, played by Annabelle Bork. And he is a doctor who's getting ready to ship out to Korea, and it's Christmas Eve, and they're having sort of their last Christmas Eve before he's going to go, and she breaks her arm, and again, more comedy and heartfelt stuff happens with them. And then you have a story in 2003, which is Shannon Kook and Sarah Dugdale. They play a newly married couple who, for the very first time, their in-laws, so each set of parents is celebrating Christmas with them in their new house on Cherry Lane. And they find out a lot about each other and a lot about their families. And, so two sets of in-laws and competing traditions and things like that. That one's a really funny story. And then the third story is a continuation of Jonathan Bennett and Vincent Rodriguez's story. So we get to see them a year later in 2024 as each of them is trying to come up with a surprise for each other on Christmas Eve. And things go awry in the planning of those surprises. So you've got those three different stories. And again, they're all connected with each other, but in ways that you don't really know until you sort of see how the Jonathan and Vinny's story is connected to the 1951 story and the 2003 story, and all these fun things unfold throughout that. So that's the first movie. I'm
going to ask a question first.
Sure, please stop me at any time.
When you picked so 1951, I'm like, what can I even relate to that? That's long before my time. And then you said a doctor going off to the Korean War. That is something everyone has a film reference for, a series reference for. Like that was that on purpose? MASH is,
Smash, obviously, that's sort of the thing that inspired me. When I first thought of how old I wanted the house to be and when I wanted the first story to be, I thought 1950s. That just felt right, and especially for the house that they used. And so I just started thinking and researching about, what was the world in the 1950s, in the early 1950s, and Korea popped up, and I'm like, well, that'd be interesting. I don't remember. I'm sure that there've been stories like this that have been told, but the idea of a couple who are facing being apart and facing all the potentials that going off to a war zone brings with it. I thought that had an opportunity for some really powerful storytelling, but we've sort of, I guess, in the MASH tradition, the TV series at least, we've included a lot of comedy in there. So, as they're trying to sort of not think about what's happening, we're going to have this Christmas Eve. No, it's Christmas Eve. We're not going to pay attention to that. So it really is, for me, a lot of it is about research. That was in the first movie as well, the 1973 movie. I was researching 1973 and a lot of stuff about the oil crisis and the energy crisis was in there. And so I folded that into their story and had John Brotherton's character. He owns a gas station and it just sort of unfolds from there.
Yeah, no, that's fun. Because as soon as you said he's a doctor going to Korea, now all of a sudden I have this foundation that's massive. That's not about this movie, but I understand how that happened, and just to take something that's just woven into our culture in ways that everybody dreams about when you're writing a series or a movie, right? And yeah, so no, I love that you did that as a jumping point. I'm kind of a research geek, and so I just finished a rewrite of another movie yesterday, as a matter of fact. And I got to research a lot about Argentina. I now know a lot more about Argentina than I ever thought that I would need to know about Argentina. So I just automatically say, "Don't cry for me" when you say
exactly. Yeah, I know that one. Anyway, so that's the first of the three movies. The second of the three movies premieres on December 12th, a week later, and it's called Happy Holidays from Cherry Lane. This one, again, we've got the three stories. So the first one's in 1960, and that stars a couple of Hallmark favorites. We've got Benjamin Ayres and Erica Durance play the main couple in this. They play a married couple who has a kid who's 9 or 10-ish, and his father has had an injury and has been living with them. And Benjamin Ayres' character and the father, they have a very not fantastic relationship. The father's very curmudgeonly, and they're they're 1960s guys who don't
Right.
talk about, I mean, guys today still have this thing of we don't talk about our feelings and, you know, stuff like that, but especially back in the 60s. So it's as they're building a time capsule for for Benjamin Ayre's son's school project, a Christmas themed time capsule. And it brings up a lot of stuff between the father and son. So it's really a father-son story. So that was another nice sort of different thing to do in a Hallmark movie. That's the first story. Then the second story takes place in 1998, and we get Catherine Bell and James Denton again. It's a year before the story from the first movie, and we get to see how they meet. So they meet for the first time on Christmas Eve, and so we tell that story of their romance and how that became a thing that a year later he has proposed and they're going to move away to Florida, and we sort of lay in some of the background story that as you watch the 1998 story, you'll go, oh, that's why that happened in a year later in 1999. So that one's really fun. And we get also the character of Ivy, who was in the first movie. She's in that story as well. She's actually in a bunch of the stories. Then our last story is a really funny one. I love all of them, but this one's really funny. It's Julie Gonzalo and Ryan Rotman. She plays a woman who her sister was going to have a Christmas Eve wedding, but something something that happens way too often in Hallmark world. Something has gone wrong with the wedding venue.
Oh, no. No.
No, it happens. I don't know why that happens so much.
No.
But so she has to host the wedding in her house. So it's the house on Cherry Lane. So it's going to be a Christmas Eve wedding in her house on Cherry Lane for her sister. And the officiant, the minister that shows up to perform the wedding, is her former high school boyfriend that broke her heart.
Yeah.
And so she has to work with naturally. So she has to work with this guy that she has a history with, and to put on this wedding, and so they have to sort of resolve some stuff from their past. But it's a really, really funny story, and a great romance. And again, so 1960, 1998, and 2015, and you find out how all those stories are connected to each other and to the other ones that you've already seen.
Wow. How do you keep this all straight?
Oh man, I was temporarily, I was very strongly considering doing like one of those murder boards, you know, with the red string.
The strings.
Yes, exactly.
Manifest.
It really was. I actually started doing this when I wrote the first movie. Before I knew that there were going to be more of them, I created a timeline.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I sort of invented this history for this house, and I knew where people could where families could slot in there, and how things could work, and so I really I do it sort of as an outline, a timeline. You know, this is here and this happened here, and I had to get it's like 18 pages long, because it really was. It was about, okay, well, this is when Conrad from the first movie, he goes to college in this year, which is not discussed at all. It's not important anywhere in the movies, but I had to make sure I was doing the timeline right so that I didn't have a character show up or talk about something or have something happen in some other story that was related to that the time didn't make sense. So it really was just sort of bullet pointing it all the way out. Here's 1951, here's 1952, all the way through to 2024. Yeah, it was a challenge, but it was a fun one. It was a really fun challenge.
Yeah, I mean, you've created an entire.
It's a universe.
Yeah,
it's a universe building.
It's my version of the Avengers universe.
Right.
You know, Hallmark. It's the Cherry Lane universe.
As a huge fan of This Is Us, I love the fact that you don't have to tell time in order. And that has always been a piece of storytelling, but This Is Us really made the firm foundation of viewers can accept not at the same timeline, and you don't have to tell the timelines in order. And to see Christmas traditions around that seems so fun, and can't wait for those to roll out.
Well, that was really the sort of the crux of it, which is from the first movie all the way through all of these movies, is that Christmas, some people have so many different Christmas traditions, but the things that connect us are community and family and friends and love. That's these are all the elements of Christmas that, regardless of what the family looks like, whether it's a doctor and his wife in 1951 or a gay couple getting a foster kid in 2023, the elements behind that are all the same. It's all Christmas, and so that's sort of the foundation of all of these movies. And yeah, telling the stories this way in a non-linear fashion, how we're sort of bouncing back and forth in between time periods. I will say that a lot of people put on Hallmark movies and then they do other things. They're looking at their phone, they're doing other things. And these are movies, you can still do that, but you're going to miss some of the fun connections and elements that tie these things together. It's still going to be very satisfying if you're looking at your phone while you're watching this Hallmark movie. You're still going to get it, and you're still going to enjoy it. But these are movies that I think if you really sort of devote your attention to it, that it's really an enriching experience. I heard anecdotally that Christmas on Cherry Lane was the repeat viewing on that on DVR was very, very high because people watched it and then they went back to watch it again to be like, oh, okay, now I see how that's connected, because I sort of missed that one little element there. And then and so people watched it over and over and over and over again. And so that's one of the great things about these 3 new movies going to be on streaming. You can watch it as many times as you want. Okay, so I told you about the 2. Then we've got our final one, which is on airing on December 19th, called Deck the Halls on Cherry Lane. 3 more stories we've got. In 1966, this one is probably one of my favorites. It's Benjamin Hollingsworth owns the house on Cherry Lane that we're talking about. And his neighbor, played by Chelsea Hobbs, she has entered a contest where a local but national TV host, sort of like I think Dick Clark, American Bands, I think it's Sullivan. He's got a variety show, and he hosts a Christmas Eve show that he broadcasts live from somebody's house every year on Christmas Eve. And she wins the contest. But he used her neighbor's address because her house is too small, and not thinking she was really going to win, but she does. So she has to go and convince this guy to pretend to be her husband.
Perfect.
And they host a variety show with TV cameras, and we've got Matt Dusk, who is a very popular singer, sort of a crooner style singer. He's playing the TV host, and so it's a really funny thing, and that's all set in 1966. Then we go to 1981, where we go back to John Brotherton and Erin Cahill's story. In their first story from the first movie, they were moving into the house. In this story in 1981, 8 years later, they're moving out of the house.
Okay.
And there are some secrets they're keeping from each other, some things they haven't told each other that cause some Christmas havoc. And you get to meet their daughter at 8 years old, and she doesn't want to leave. She loves Cherry Lane.
Yeah.
So that's the 1981 story. And then in 2000, we have another couple of Hallmark favorites, Sam Page and Brooke Dorsey, who are, they're playing a couple in 2000 who have been friends since they were infants. and they find out about this thing that's happening in the neighborhood. People are doing these random acts of kindness, Christmas themed, and they start to try to find out what's behind all of that. And through that, they start to realize that they have feelings for one another. And so these longtime friends who sort of start to fall in love while they're doing Christmas acts of kindness. And that's all around the new millennium, year 2000 stuff. Right. So those are the three stories in that movie. And again, each movie is a standalone piece, and you can watch just that movie and be satisfied. But if you watch all four movies, you're going to see this grand universe plan that we have all put together across Cherry Lane.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, between the lineup of talent, and then thinking about even just like the costuming and the sets from the different eras and the stories, I'm very excited.
I need Aaron Cahill with 1980s hair. I can't wait.
They unfortunately, I didn't get to go visit the set. I run a theater company here in Savannah, and I live in Savannah, Georgia, by the way. And we were busy with some shows going on, so I wasn't able to go visit the set. I was very disappointed, but I did get a bunch of pictures from the set and seeing the costumes and the period detail, which is amazing because here's I hope that you'll find a fun story. In the first movie, and the way they did this, in the first movie, it was an actual house. They filmed the whole thing in an actual house. And they went in there, they filmed one of the storylines in 5 days. They film it in a week. And then they go in, the set people come in on the weekend, and they completely remodeled this house to look like the next time period over the weekend. Amazing. And then the following week, they shot the next story. And then the set designers came in and did it again and changed the whole thing again to the next time period to do the final thing. They did the same thing now 9 times.
That's insane.
1951, 1960, 1966, 1981, 1970s. I mean, all the way through. This time they did it on a soundstage, but still they would shoot one story, and then the set people would come in and change everything, and then they shoot the next one. They really are the heroes of these movies. The producers and the production crew, the set designers for all the period details that they have in here. Really, really stunning.
But that really brings your story to life then. Like, you're telling a story in a time period, the set deck, the costuming, that's what gives it the, icing on the cake, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And as how creative that they were able to be to, like in the first movie, there's a car that plays some pivotal moments in it. And they found this beautiful late 1960s car, but then later in the movie, when it's in the 1990s, it has to look old and beat up. So what they were able to do to this car to make it look, that's the same car through the entire movie. That's all movie magic to make it look old and beat up and then make it look new and shiny again. So it's amazing what they can do.
Love that. So both of these big projects, and I think they're very big projects. People are excited about, the Groomsmen trilogy and of course the Cherry Hill, but they're both on Hallmark Plus. So I think they're saving all the really good stuff for the brand new streaming network. Did you always know that was the plan?
I did. I think I don't actually really remember. But it didn't. I think the important thing about Hallmark Plus is that it's still all the stuff that you know and love. It's still, there's going to be some different kinds of storytelling, maybe, and certainly these two big projects, and they've got a few others that they're doing on Plus that have sort of these continuations. But each of these movies, regardless if it's the Groomsman movie or the Cherry Lane movies or the other projects that they're doing, they really are the Hallmark movies that you know and love. They're just sort of more. They're plus, maybe. Hey, see what I did there?
That's why you're the writer.
That's why I'm the writer. That's why they pay me the big bucks. But then when you have these new sort of exciting projects, that, you know, they're still doing all the new and exciting products on Hallmark Channel and Hallmark Movies and Mysteries as well. It's just sort of more. It's additional. Plus, see, I did it again. On Hallmark Plus, I went and checked every single movie that I have ever written for Hallmark. You can stream on Hallmark Plus. I went and made a little playlist, you know, on my Hallmark Plus, which I have.
Yeah.
I went and made a little playlist of the, I think it's 20, almost 20 movies. I think 22, something like that. It's a lot of movies. So you can watch every movie that if my name is in the credits, every one of those movies is on Hallmark Plus, and I'm not the only one. So you know the catalog. I know, right?
Right. In the highlights, and we need the Rick Garman highlights.
So we can just go right through and binge them. Yeah.
You've got Christmas, you've got fall, you've got Rick Garman. Sure, why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
For Hallmark fans, that's the other thing that's really great about Hallmark Plus is, you know, sure you can DVR when movies are on the channel and save those for yourselves, but you sort of have to pay attention to the schedule and hope that they're going to be on. And what about that movie Christmas on Homestead that I haven't seen in years and years and years? Well, now on Hallmark Plus, you can go and watch that anytime you want. And I think for Hallmark fans, it's just it's a no-brainer.
So as we're watching and all these new movies, and we love all the movies that we've seen, or we go back to watch them, what is it that makes a movie a Rick Garman movie? What is your magic touch?
Oh, I don't know that I have one. There are lots of people who write lots of movies. I don't know if, you know, because they do so many of them. People have asked me many times, like, has anybody written more than me? And I think so. I don't know for sure. But I think for me, it's about character. It's about the characters, and I try to write people as fully fleshed out human beings as much as you can in any 2-hour movie. Right. What I've been told, and I think some of this comes from having my acting training. I have a tendency to write the way people talk, because in the real world, people don't usually talk in complete sentences with a period at the end of it. They start in one direction and then they turn and they pivot, and then you know, the thought goes one way and then it goes another way, and there are run-on sentences like the one that I'm speaking right now that, you know, don't really have an end. I have a tendency to write like that, and I've been told by the actors, certainly, that the dialogue that I write is easy for them to say, because so many times, again, going back to when I was trying to be an actor, I would look at scripts and the words just don't come out of your mouth right. It's like people don't talk like that. So having very natural dialogue and really focusing on characters that have honest emotions and real emotions that people can connect to, that's what I try to do. And I think that's the Hallmark brand in general, is having characters and situations, and by that I mean things like Christmas, or you know, things that everybody can relate to and feel like that's part of my story. You know, right. I remember what it was like to first fall in love. I remember what it was like for the turkey to be ruined at Christmas. I remember, you know, all of these little elements that make humans human. That's what I try to do. I might not always be successful at it, but that's what I strive for.
I think that's just it. The characters, and you can see their core or their heart too. And that's why your movies get rewatched. I think that's why we're going back to see them again. We love
I hope
that.
so. I hope that I hope that people understand when they're watching a movie that I have worked on that I'm not doing this just for the paycheck. This is not even necessarily, again, when I'm writing something that I'm not getting paid for, it's usually not this kind of a movie.
Right.
I'm doing this because I really love creating these worlds and creating these characters and telling these stories. And I'm hoping, as we talked about earlier, that it's going to be 2 hours of happiness, of comfort, of I call them comfort food. I've said this many times, which is, in a world gone mad, and there's no way that anybody can look out their window and think anything other than the world has just gone completely insane. In this world, here's 2 hours where it's not insane,
Right.
where it's comfortable and familiar, and you're going to get the warm fuzzies, and you're going to shut off that movie after 2 hours and hopefully feel a little better. That's why I write these movies. That's why I do this, and I hope that people who watch that can feel that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly do. So
I
think you are on the right track.
I've been on the track for a minute now, so.
Hot minute. Do you have a favorite script you've ever written?
It's like Sophie's Choice. I would say my favorites. I love the Cherry Lane movies. I'm very proud of the Cherry Lane movies. We got nominated for some awards for the Cherry Lane movies, which was very cool. Didn't win, but we got nominated. But again, sort of telling all these stories of different families, different types of families, friends, married couples, couples falling in love, straight couples, gay couples, families with children, families without children, all of those different stories, being able to sort of lay that foundation of we're all connected in ways that we might not recognize. Those are favorites. But before that, I would say probably A Shoe Addict's Christmas.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, because it was
classic.
It was sort of different. Again, a little bit of a different storytelling thing, and Candace, and it had Gene Smart, Luke McFarlane. I mean, come on, and Gene Smart. I got to meet Gene Smart and sit on a set all day long with her. And by the way, she is exactly who you hope she's going to be. She is funny and gaudy and just the nicest human being on earth. She told me all these stories in between takes. She came and sat next to me and told me all these stories about designing women and all the different things that she's done. That it was a highlight of my life. But I'm really proud of that. Proud of that script.
Yeah,
I think it
and
had a nice message
the viewers love that script. Like they love that story.
Yeah, it had a nice message, I think, about faith and the different ways that faith can mean what that can mean to different people, not just from a religious perspective, but faith in yourself, faith in family, faith in friends, faith in the world, that the foot that you're trying to put on the ground, that the ground's going to be there beneath you. It was a really cool experience to work on.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of favorites, we do have a little favorites game we like to play. Are you up for that?
I am up for it.
All right. Do you have a favorite rom-com? Maybe one you haven't written.
Oh yeah. Favorite rom-com. Probably My Best Friend's Wedding. Unless you can count Princess Bride as a rom-com.
Oh, you can count.
No, for sure. It would be inconceivable not to include that in,
See what you did there? I like it.
As an option. Yeah. I mean, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Notting Hill, I have to throw that one in. I have a hard time picking just one of anything, but those are sort of the three that immediately spring to mind when I think of great rom-coms.
Love that. No, Princess Bride is always a rom-com. So, and you can pick as many as you want. There's no rules. This not really a game.
Yeah, not a real game.
Do you have a favorite TV series or something you're currently streaming?
Wow, I'm a TV junkie.
Yeah.
I'm a binge watcher and a TV junkie. My all-time favorite shows are Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
Soap.
Yeah.
From the late 1970s into the early 1980s. More recent things would be Ozark. I think just is one of the most powerful, best shows ever on television. And things that I love right now, Only Murders in the Building is amazing. I'm going to stop there because I'll just keep going. I watch way too much television. I don't know how I have the time for it, but I do.
Yeah, no, I think people love this part because they're like, oh, they literally get ideas of things to watch.
Yeah, definitely. Do you remember like the first show, growing up that really just kind of like pulled you in?
I grew up in the I grew up in the 2000s and 2010s. I grew up in the 70s. I was a kid in the 70s and the early 80s, and so television was
different.
It was different. Soap. I use that one as a metric just because it was so completely different. There was nothing like it on television. It was outrageously funny, and yet you'd also find yourself just crying because it was so powerful. It was just it was a great show. But I really think, going back to one that I just mentioned, which didn't debut until I was a young adult, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think that what it did in terms of the humor, but with a underlying, the whole thing was an analogy about life, about things that kids go through and adults go through, and so I really connected to that and was sort of my eyes were sort of opened from a writing perspective of how you can write characters to be funny and irreverent and yet still spin to that serious stuff, and that's the one that that really I think changed the game for me in terms of how I viewed what television could be.
Love that answer. Gosh, it's been ages since I've seen
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Probably since it was, airing weekly.
I've rewatched it probably 7 or 8 times. It's a great show.
Love that.
Yes. Okay. What about a favorite musical or book?
Musical. I'm also a big Broadway fan. As I mentioned, I have a theater company here in Savannah, the Savannah Cabaret, and we did Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein a little earlier this year, which is fantastic. But I go to New York and see shows on Broadway all the time. I think my current favorites, and there are, again, it's a long list, but if I had to pick a top, I'm going to give you a top 4. Sorry.
Sounds good to us. Yeah.
Company, classic, Sondheim, genius, beautiful, wonderful show. I actually, when I was attempting being an actor, I did that show. I played Bobby, so it means a lot to me, a very long time. Shucked, which was on last year, 2 years ago, that had Alex Newell in it, won some Tonys. Funny show. Fantastic music, feel good, just a great show. And then one that I just saw in Chicago that is opening on Broadway. I think it either just opened or is about to open. I'm going back to see it again in November. Is the new musical of Death Becomes Her.
Okay.
It's a musical version of the classic Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn movie, Death Becomes Her. Yeah. And it's got Broadway royalty. It's got Megan Hilty and Jennifer Sennard as the two main characters. And again, I saw it in Chicago. It is brilliant. It is the funniest musical I've ever seen in my entire life. I was crying. I was laughing so hard. The music is great. The staging is great. I can't wait to see it again. I'm like, is it November yet? I can't wait to go. So those are the three that I would put on my list.
People will be buying their tickets here soon.
I need a cut. Hey, Death Becomes Her people.
Right. Sounds amazing. I love that. Shocked was being sung around here. We have a weird combination of a very musical child and one who's living in the corn in Iowa. So,
I grew up in Iowa. So
yeah. I've one living down in Iowa, living his best engineering, farming life. And then one teaches theater and directs and music and all that stuff. So
nice.
Yeah, so Shocked was just a combination of those.
It's such a great show, and to have seen Alex Newell. Alex Newell can do anything. Yeah. And they, I got to see a one-person show that they did that I think is now available on Audible. So if you're on Audible, go listen to it. Alex Newell is just a genius. I'll go see anything they do.
I love that.
I love that. So do you have a favorite food? Healthy, indulgent?
Oh, geez. Food has always been a challenge for me, even before and then after the whole cancer thing, because I had part of my stomach removed.
Right.
So food is just a challenge for me all the time, and yet I am a foodie. I live in the South, and so fried chicken, meatloaf, barbecue, basically anything Southern, I am there for it. So I won't say that's why I moved to Savannah, Georgia, but I'm also not going to say that it didn't play a part.
I was going to say, well, that sounds all delicious. So.
Yeah.
Love that. You've got to live somewhere where there's good food. I found traveling around, sometimes you're like, it's so great, but there's nowhere good to eat.
Yeah. I lived in LA for 30 some odd years, and there's great food in LA, great Mexican food, and there's great food in LA. But since I've left, I honestly don't miss anything about LA except for a couple of people and a couple of restaurants like that. So it's food. There's some food that I could get in LA that I can't get here in Savannah that I do miss. But yeah, you got to live someplace where you can find good food.
Okay, what is your favorite hobby or pastime when you're not writing?
It's writing.
Yeah,
I know that's kind of terrible. It's writing or watching TV. Again, the theater.
Right.
As much as I love writing the Hallmark movies, I write a lot of the stuff that my theater company does.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in the world like being in a room and hearing people laugh or cry or gasp or cheer for something that you have helped create. There's nothing in the world like it. So, but I always joke that I don't have a life. And by that, I mean, I don't have a significant other. I don't have children. I don't have pets. I don't even have a plant. So I don't have the things that take up a lot of other people's time for good reason. If you have a significant other or kids or pets or a plant, you have to devote time and attention to that. So people are always saying to me, how could you possibly have written 6 movies in like 2.5 months? How is that possible? I'm like, well, because I didn't have anybody bothering me. I was able to, and I love doing it. So if I'm not writing something that I'm getting paid for, I will also often be writing something that I'm hoping can become a TV show or a movie or a book or whatever. So that's really my hobby is writing.
And gosh, what a blessing it is that, something that you enjoy doing so much is also your job, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody gets to say that.
No, very, very few people get to say that.
Amazing.
So yes, I'm very, very lucky again.
Right.
Love that.
And then do you have favorite music, singer, song, band, musical?
I again have a pretty diverse taste. I was a club DJ for many years in Los Angeles, so I love dance music, current music, to past music. But if again, I can't just pick one. But if there were, and these are two wildly different people. Bette Midler is probably one of the greatest entertainers of all time. If you've never seen Bette Midler in concert, you need to go watch some of the videos, concert movies or things that she has done. One of the greatest entertainers ever. And then the other one is Prince. I'm a Prince fanatic. Have been. You were asking about the TV show, that something that I watched that sort of had a big effect on me.
Yeah.
I still remember, and I've told the story many times, of being in my garage, washing my car. I'd washed the car, I was waxing it, I think. And Prince's Purple Rain, Prince's When Doves Cry came on the radio for the first time. And it was like my mind blew up. Like, I had no idea that music could be like that. Because I grew up in the 70s and 80s disco, and then, we had Michael Jackson and Madonna sort of in the early 80s. Right. But it was very pop oriented and sort of very safe. And When Doves Cry, it just changed. It changed everything for me, for music. And so ever since then, I've been an incredible Prince fan. So
I feel like I failed as a podcaster. Normally, Prince albums are on my
nice.
Are back here.
You failed as a Minnesotian.
Yeah, so as someone who is in Minnesota, who lives
in Minnesota. Okay. I just saw that.
Who's been to First Avenue?
I just saw Wendy and Lisa have redone the house that was used in Purple Rain, and it's available as an Airbnb, and it's all done with Prince stuff from the movie. And I'm like, I need to go to there.
Need to go see the Prince house.
I need to go see the Prince house. Yep.
Yeah, you could get baptized in the waters of Lake Minnetonka.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go see his estate.
I've been there. I've been to Paisley Park. So.
Okay. Yeah, out in Chanhassen there. Yeah.
Yep.
I've been to the Prince store in the airport. That's about it.
That counts.
Yeah, she was flying from the East Coast, and we were going to Vancouver together. So her layover was at MSP, and we only had a little bit of time. And I made her walk to the Prince store so we could take a photo.
I love that there's a Prince store in the airport. I didn't know that. It makes me, the next connecting flight, maybe I'll have to go through Minneapolis too.
Stuff at MSP. There's a whole shopping mall in the MSP airport. So swing by the Prince store.
I will do that next time.
Well, this was fun.
Yes. So Rick, tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Sure. On Instagram, on Facebook, on I don't know, the Weather Channel, CNN. I think I'm on all of them. I am Rick Garman Inc. INK, like the ink on my arm.
Yes.
Rick Garman Inc. INK are my professional channels. That's the best way to find me on social media. I also have a website, rickgarman.com, and that's kind of the best way to hunt me down.
Yes, and take a look at your his website. You have so many projects and so much information on there. Yes.
One of the things I've been able to do is I put past scripts on there. So if you want to go and look at older things that I have written, especially for people who are interested in maybe taking a swing at writing a Hallmark movie or writing one of these kinds of movies, can look at some older projects that are on there.
Yes, absolutely.
People are going to be diving that for sure.
Yeah, I know. I've been doing it since we started chatting. It's just such a wealth of information there. But thank you so much, Rick. And everybody, make sure you check out Falling Together if you haven't already. And of course, later, well, not this month, still September, but in October is the Groomsman trilogy.
Yeah.
And then December, of course, we have Christmas on Cherry Hill.
And those are all available on Hallmark Plus.
On Hallmark Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it's Cherry Lane, not Cherry Hill.
Oh, I don't know where that came from. Cherry Lane.
Cherry Lane.
Excuse me.
Cherry Lane, yeah. Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. It's been fun to talk.
Yes, absolutely. Come back again. Hang on for 1 second. We'll end our recording. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.